Irked by China, India signals turnaround on Dalai Lama, invites 84-year-old Tibetan leader to deliver prestigious lecture instituted in memory of its second president. Haha. India just gave the biggest fuck you to China a country can do. I await to see the consequences that China will have for India. New Delhi's move came at a time when Beijing's repeated statements echoing Pakistan and opposing the decision of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government on Jammu and Kashmir. Has Kashmir got their internet back yet? Based on the lack of news, no. My guess is 5-10 and then maybe we'll hear about Kashmir again, about the violent protests/gov crackdowns that happened in the interim. It is a macro HK with none of the acknowledgement or support, because it is not economically important to anyone other than India or Pakistan. Too few people, too effective information control. As many comments below point out, and I thought easily discerned. Kashmir is very complicated in its own way, and not easily summed up. It is very different than HK, but relevant enough for a comparison to be drawn. Similar actions of government targeting and harassing, or worse, civilians, no functional actions by the Western world or others, and just a grim expectation that shit is, and will continue to go down for the foreseeable future. It is a macro HK. Well, economically maybe, but population-wise. HK. 7 million. Kashmir. 13 million. Good. Fuck China's government. This is like a series finale for Mr. Robot or some shit. Oh shit, I missed the latest one. Thanks for reminder. It was a sad and excellent performance. This week's episode. I can't imagine how this week's episode is, if last week's was most definitely completely off topic, but how soon does it improve after season 2? I grinded to a halt halfway through season 2 because nothing was progressing, and it seemed to drag on and on. A complete 180 from season 1. Second season is definitely the slowest and the weakest one. Third season, on the other hand, has some really great new characters. And hands down the fourth episode of that season is my all-time favorite episode of any TV series. Good. India has been great throughout the decades with granting asylum to Tibetans fleeing the disgusting Chinese regime. Ask people in Kashmir how great India has been. Better than Tibetans in China? The world is a complex place. Both are being treated like shit. But it's funny seeing a pro-HK guy celebrating India, a country that does the same shit that China does. Kashmir is their HK. That just shows their hypocrisy. Stand up for HK in the name of human rights, but let's not give a fuck about human rights anywhere else, please. I'm Indian and I agree with you. What my country is doing is shameful, and I don't understand why we are not being held accountable on an international level. Most other Indians I know don't give a shit, or have been systematically brainwashed. If you are truly proud of your nation, you shouldn't celebrate your government abusing their power, you should condemn it. As an Indian, I want to know what's the shameful stuff being done. I'm not accusing you of making things up, I just don't follow the news a lot, and I think there hasn't really been any news on Kashmir. There was a video going around Instagram which claimed to show the brutality being done by the Indian army, but then it was later debunked to be footage of the Indian army fighting against the Pakistani militants. China needs to ask themselves the question, am I the asshole? They would then answer no. It's the world that's wrong. I think it's actually more dangerous than that. Yes, but I don't care. Never would have thought I would root for India, considering the BS that is happening with Kashmirs. But anyway, anyone rising up against China, in any way or form, deserves praise and recognition. Considering the BS that is happening with Kashmirs. Well, New Delhi's move came at a time when Beijing's repeated statements echoing Pakistan and opposing the decision of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government on Jammu and Kashmir. When did China start making the statements? If it has been the last few months, then that is a convenient time to come out against a genocide. Meanwhile, they also are committing genocide. Pakistan is China's puppet state. China is simply a UNSC veto-holding overlord that Pakistan runs to every time they feel unfairly treated. Plenty of false equivalence abounds on this website regarding J&K and HK. So here is my contribution. India is as much a democracy as the US is in the present day. Indian Muslims in the Indian Union Territory of J&K have it about as good as African Americans. The Indian military is as moral on their own territory in J&K as those US soldiers convicted of war crimes in foreign lands recently pardoned by POTUS. Each of these is as justifiable, or not, as the other. Pakistan is as authoritarian as China is. Yet the very same people who voice their opinion for the people of HK also seem to be quite willing to take the side of Pakistan when it comes to J&K. Western-style liberalism at its best. Fortunately, the influence of Reddit on global geopolitics is fairly limited. Indian Muslims in the Indian Union Territory of J&K have it about as good as African Americans. Do you like regressive Islamic laws that much? 106 union laws have been applied which gives the people of Jammu Kashmir to stand for government jobs, make homosexuality legal, which was previously illegal, Prevention of Corruption Act, National Commission for Minorities Act and Land Acquisition Act, and many more. Nice propaganda. Literally everyone on that commissional hearing was calling out India and its abuses, except that one plant. China thought they could start enforcing their will on a global scale and now are finding the reality of soft power. That's another problem with China, they think only hard power and money matters. They don't even know what soft power is, or how important it is for a country. They do know about soft power. Look at how Hollywood and Western media completely changed their tune on China in last decade. That took sustained effort by PRC to make it possible. After Xi won over his rivals and effectively became chairman and emperor, CPC policy took a very assertive tone and old policy of bide your time was thrown out. Any perceived loss of face to Xi/CPC, hard muscle power is being used more and more. This thread is a shitshow of whataboutism from questionable sources. How about we agree that you are all hypocrites? People conveniently forget history. At one point China was squashed by the Western powers and it never forgot. Even though it makes sense now for China to swallow its past in sync with the world, the way India is doing right now, it somehow seems to nurture that humiliation, and now that it can, it's taking it out systematically on all its ex-aggressors. It helps nobody, but at the same time, I can see why it's doing it. The irony is that, if China wanted to be more powerful than the West, it just needs to befriend its neighbors and form a nation coalition. It decides to do the opposite instead, and keeps claiming it's misunderstood when people don't like them, like none of it is China's fault. People don't